You read the title, you know what this video is all about, so let's get straight into it. The JMP-1. I watched Michael Nielsen's video last week or the week before. He made this thing sound amazing, and he actually used the speaker emulated output on it a couple of times, and I never got that to sound good, but I want to revisit it in this video. But first, I'm doing this kind of the traditional way you would set up this preamp. I'm running it into a Marshall style power amp. I'm actually using the effects return on my Marshall DSL-50. That's going into my cab with greenbacks. I've got an SM57 on it, and in post, I have the low cut set at about 80 Hertz and the high cut set at around 10K. So just removing some boom, removing some fizz, and you can hear what it sounds like. Now, I did a pretty in-depth demo with this unit a year or two ago, maybe a couple of years ago, so I don't want to revisit everything there, but I just kind of want to talk about a few things that I've stumbled across and grown to appreciate on this unit since plugging it in earlier today. And one is the user interface and how usable it is. There's not dedicated knobs for everything like an amp, but if I want to adjust the gain or the bass, I just press a button and then I use this data control, and it's pretty quick to adjust stuff. For example, let's say I want a little bit more bass in there. I can crank that up. That sounds pretty cool. Let's say I want to take the gain all the way up to 20. You can tell this is a post-Spinal Tap piece of gear. I can do that. And this is on the OD1 channel. There are 4 channels: OD1, OD2, Clean 1, Clean 2. Let's take the gain back down to halfway, which is about 10. It's kind of got that nice fast bark about the attack that Marshalls tend to have. And EQ-wise, I've found that with this particular setup, I like the bass, you know, at 5 or somewhere between 3 and 5. It goes all the way up to 6, which we'll talk about in a second. Mids, I have at 1. Treble, I have at 6. Presence, I have in the middle, which is 0. So essentially the way this works is, in order to make it MIDI programmable, there is a fixed tone stack, and bass, middle, treble, and presence are essentially like a programmable 4-band graphic EQ. That's kind of how it works. And I always remember back when I was getting into guitar, the early days of the internet, for me anyway, we're talking 2002, 2003, there was a website that someone had set up which just was ragging on the JMP-1, talking about how it's not really tube and that the PV Rockmaster is the greatest preamp of all time. Some of you may remember that website. I can't remember much about it, but I did find that really hilarious that someone went to the effort to do that. But the JMP-1 sounds fine. I mean, so what if it's using clipping diodes? Who cares? If it sounds like a Marshall, then that's kind of what people want out of it, right? So there is a couple of cool features, namely this bass shift function. Let's have a listen to that. That's pretty cool. Maybe if I give it a little bit more gain, and then we'll play around with the presence control in a second. So cranking the presence is really kind of like a high mid control. If I bring it all the way down, it sounds like this. Kind of takes all the fun stuff out of the guitar. Maybe I'll set it at about 2 here. So bass shift just adds a little bit of kind of clunk in the bottom end. Different to chunk. Clunk is different. I just invented that term right now. Please don't make it a meme. Let's hear OD2 with the bass shift in compared to OD1 now. That kind of reminds me of, I've got a Marshall 2210 head, if anyone remembers that, the split channel JCM 800. It's a little more compressed for kind of that choppy rhythm guitar stuff, I much prefer OD1, but I guess if you were going for a really kind of smooth lead sound, you would probably use OD2. So let's turn the gain up and bring that treble control down. I'll also bring the presence up. And let's hear how much mid-range this thing has. Sorry, Steve, I play that terribly, but that's kind of cool. That's nice and smooth. The clean channels are interesting as well. I'm just going to go on the record and say I think clean 1 sucks. I like clean 2 a lot more, so if you like clean 1, that's totally fine. It's totally to taste, but clean 2 actually reminds me a little bit more of something like a clean JTM-45. Well, I've got plenty of bass in there. I've got the bass shift on. Let's bring the treble back all the way up to where it was, and I'll dip a little bit of presence, and I will add some more gain in there just to try to get it gritty. Let's explore if it does the edge of breakup thing, shall we? What is that? That is super weird. That sounds like a really hard limiter on there or something. Yeah, this is interesting. It's not kind of like transitioning into a nice smooth breakup like a real JTM-45 or something would. Maybe let's go to OD1. That is, after all, an overdrive channel. So we'll go over there. Let's bring the gain down quite low, say to about 4. 4 is low on this because it goes to 20. Kind of doing it on OD1, it does sound and feel a little bit compressed, kind of like you've got an always-on compressor pedal or something like that. So, if you're somebody who wants a really super touch-sensitive amplifier, you're probably not even looking at this anyway. But yeah, that's kind of cool. I like the way the interface works. I like Clean 1 for those kind of spanky JTM cleans, and I like OD1 for pretty much everything else on this. Right. Let's hear that speaker emulated output and let's see if I can get it to sound good. All right, the way I've connected this is I've plugged the speaker emulated output of the JMP-1 into my Axe effects. That is then going straight into my DAW. The reason I've used the Axe effects is that this will let me add some time-based effects, which sound incredible in it, and it will also let me do some post EQ. So before we do that, same settings as before. Where's the gain? I'll bring it up to 8 where I had it at the start of the clip. Bass, I'll bring that down to about 3. Mid-range at 1. I'll leave the treble all the way up and the presence at 0. I'm on OD1 with the bass shift. This is raw, which means I better turn this little reverb that I've got on off. So this is just straight in. I'm going to add some EQ, then some time-based effects as we go. That's not bad. It's a little bit fizzy. I'll bring the high cut down a little bit more. Interesting. I'm probably cutting a little bit too much low end there, so let's bring that down. Okay, next I'm going to add a little bit of a room style reverb. Let's hear that. I don't mind this. I could live with this. I could do a gig with this. Let's have some fun now, and let's add some time-based effects there. There's a pretty epic tri-stereo chorus algorithm in the old Axe FX, or I should say the new Axe FX, because it's the Axe FX 3. So this is a tri-stereo chorus at stock settings. That's kind of cool. Maybe the Dimension chorus would be fun with this as well. I gotta hear clean 2 with this, actually. Bring the gain up a little bit. That's not how you play Hysteria. Just forget you heard that. That's kind of nice. I like that. Let's go back to OD. Let's try OD2. I'll bring the gain up. I'll smooth it out by bringing the treble down and the mids up a little bit. And let's turn that chorus off, because I'm sure there's people out there who have probably turned the video off by now when they hear chorus and just can't deal with it. But I do have a delay on here. I'm using this Memory Man emulation. It sounds like this. I mean, it sounds like guitar. It's not the greatest tone that I've ever had in my life, but it's kind of usable, I think, considering this unit is like probably about as old as I am. That's a decent enough speaker emulation, and you know, we have to cast our minds back to a time before we had things like impulse responses. This is so noisy. I apologize about that. Let's bring the gain down. Digital modeling, pre-impulse responses, all that kind of stuff. That stuff just sounds so good now that hearing this, yeah, it's not the greatest thing ever, but I guess in context at the time, for a one rack space solution, 128 presets, a pretty good UI, and a usable speaker simulation, you could probably have paired this with something like an Elisa's Quad Reverb and had a fun little direct rig for whatever gig you were doing at the time. So yeah, the JMP-1, should you rush out and buy one? Yes, if you can get it for probably less than like $300 or $400, then it's a fun unit, but I wouldn't spend too much more than that, because we're also living in this era of A, digital modeling, and B, really good preamp pedals. Like, check out something like the Rev G3 or G4 if you're into gain, because you can get some pretty similar tones to this kind of stuff. I know people out there are going to be screaming saying it's heresy, but you can spend less than $400 now and get a really good kind of all-in-one direct solution. And I've seen people offering mods for these things which run up like over $1,000. Don't do that. Just don't do that. That's silly. It's you can go and buy a whole amp from somebody like Cherryatone. You could buy a used AX8 or a brand new FM3, and the JMP-1 model in those things is spot on. You can check out my channel for the comparison video that I did between them. It's amazingly close. So yeah, if you can grab one of these really cheap, it's kind of cool as a piece of nostalgia. I think it is pretty usable. You can get some good Marshall tones out of it. Again, it's kind of only going to be as good as the power amp and the speaker cabinet that you run it with, but if you do pair it with some good stuff, you can make use of the MIDI features and all that kind of stuff, which is nice. So yeah, there's a Marshall JMP-1. As I said earlier in the video, if you want to hear this sound really good, go and check out Michael Nielsen's video with this thing. I think he also sells Kemper profiles for it. So if you're a Kemper guy, you can go and get his JMP-1 profiles. If you're a Fractal guy, just use the JM Pre model in there because it sounds pretty much bang on. Thank you guys for watching the video. I will see you next time.